Okay. So, welcome to the fireside chat. Yeah, let me go ahead and introduce you to Tanya. And like I said, we're not this is a conversation. So if you drop something in the chat or feel free to just like stop and interrupt because this is a conversation. We're not actually in this particular case today, we are not doing any slides whatsoever. Not that we had any too many before anyway, but this time we don't have any at all. We were like, it's not work. It's okay. We don't need them. So Tanya P. Brown is passionate about empowering women over 40 to get financially ready to transition to self-employment. As a certified financial planner and accredited financial counselor with over 20 years of experience, we've partnered with Fortune 500 companies to help employees become financially secure. And so Tanya's personal journey, military to civilian life, executive to self-employed, and all the twists and turns that come with that. I was really excited to bring her on because, well, one, she's fantastic. And two, I thought that this would be a really, really awesome um like switch of what haven't we talked about that we're missing in the conversation. So thanks, Tanya. Thanks for coming.
My pleasure.
Um, so yeah, let's where should we start? What where should we start, Tanya?
I think I want to start in this season. I think I've mentioned to you before that I call the self employed gap life. That season between the time you leave, you have your last paycheck and when consistent business income comes in. And I'm like, why didn't anyone tell me of all the stuff you feel in between that stage?
Yeah. It's actually just before we were hopping on, both of us are running into the sort of a theme. I think it's June, and I believe it's June. This is my personal running belief is that because it's June, people are looking at like, how am I doing in my business? Like, what have I missed? What have I not done? What should I be doing? Am I on track to meet my profit, revenue goals, whatever the favorite number is? And yeah, so why might there be a gap?
Yeah. I think, well, one, when you first start, it's this myth, and this is just me, that, and I'm not lying, I kind of believe the myth that I was going to just leave my job and fairies would just sprinkle clients within my pathway and things will work out. I left a fairly toxic environment. I think for anyone who know my story, I call it the performance review from hell, where I actually was punished for letting my leadership know that I was going to be closing on my house, and that was deemed as a lack of team spirit. I was overworked. And for those of us that have a foot in entrepreneurship door and a foot in self employment door, honestly, it's exhausting. So when I quit, I watch YouTube. They just roll over and start entrepreneurship, and I rolled over. I was flat on my face in exhaustion. It took 3 months for me to come back to normal, which I was fairly ineffective, and that was a stretch that I did. I luckily I thought through a lot of stuff, but I didn't realize how long it takes to get over the toxicity of your employer.
I think those of us that come out of corporate have like a little bit of PTSD. Just 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 a little bit. No matter what's happened, whether they were great or whether they were terrible, there's no in between. Hi George, hi Stacy, it's good to see y'all. Um, it's what I've been finding fascinating is so I was an entrepreneur. I consider myself an accidental entrepreneur. And I was doing the entrepreneurship game, combining it with corporate for almost a year, actually a little over a year before I finally quit. And when I quit, I made sure to go out with a nice bang. But because they deserved it, because bosses are terrible sometimes. And and what I found fascinating was it was a relief in some ways, but all of a sudden my 20% saving goals, my 30% saving goals no longer could be the norm. And that was really scary. I was accustomed to being like seeing that little pay stub and but also having my business quote unquote on the side, even though it was a full-time business as well. I was used to seeing my pay stub reflecting my savings goals, my 401k matches and all of that stuff, and all of a sudden it went kaput.
Yeah, I've learned when I have friends that go solo, I try to reach out to them on what I'm estimating their first paycheck without being an employee is, because you need therapy. Like you just need, like, that is a rough day. It is like reality strikes. And I realized someone just needs to support you and say, you're not crazy, you're okay. But when you look and you're used to seeing a paycheck and there's just nothing but space there, that's all that mentally was tough to reckon with.
Yeah. It's hi Jennifer, Toriel, it's nice to see y'all. Feel free to hop on camera if you want to. Um, so when we're thinking through that so I've been now a business owner for 7 years. So I think I've had four businesses now. I think this is business number four. Um, what do you tend to think about with someone who's been in business a little longer? We're no longer we I left corporate 6 years ago, so maybe I'm a little different than some of us here on the call. But like, what do you think about in terms of a person who's sort of like me, who I've left for been gone for a while, and my finances do look way different than when I was a regular worker.
I think it is, someone had said this, I wish I can give them attribution, to look at your business almost like a child. You
Mm.
go through the newborn stage where it's growing, but it's growing in all these crazy areas and you don't know what to expect. And when you get to about the 3 to 5 year stage, you're in toddlerhood where it's misbehaving. You don't know what's going on. And then by the time you get to that 5 year mark, you're having to learn new things because you're at a new stage. So, what entertained a 2 year old doesn't entertain a 5 year old. What worked at 2 years doesn't work at five. Now we need your thing. Now we need systems and processes because we now have all these moving parts. You now may be operating in a different type of business. I mean, just think of AI. 5 years ago to now, how my business function with AI is different. So technology, I think, has sped this cycle up because we're operating. So I think grace, that if you feel like you're falling apart after 5 years in business, that's normal. You don't have the same business. You're not the same person. What I wish someone would have said to me is your goals may not be the same. What I wanted 5 years ago isn't what I want it now. So I think it's a healthy sense of going back to the table and reevaluating and giving yourself grace to walk away from things.
Yeah. I feel like, especially now, especially the conversations you and I keep running into, the word is grace. Like giving, and Jennifer, you and I, like when our last conversations, we talked a lot about grace, giving ourselves grace for the things that we were working on and the things that we were thinking about and like how we were moving in the world. So I think like, I feel like the word of the next like quarter or so is grace, right? Because even the way that we move around in our businesses, even, in the last 3 months, 6 months, may have changed.
Absolutely. So, my business coach is Kelsa Dickey with the Financial Coaching Academy. Absolutely loved her. And she said something that was game changing. And she created that, she had this success path. So, I am fully taking this from her of business. And it was so helpful. And I call it keeping an eye on your business, and knowing where you are helps you know what stage you are, and it gives you grace. Like in the beginning, you're just more interested, you're exploring, that's it. Then you get to, in my opinion, interest where you're beginning to make financial moves, but you really haven't done a lot with the business. And then we get to immersion stage where you dive in. And what she told me, what was so game changing, was for me to see this as validation and testing. She was like, you are experimenting, you're figuring out what works, you're figuring out what doesn't work. And she encouraged me to track everything, which meant I was making decisions from a place of strategy, not stress. And that gave me so much grace to know, okay, I'm not where this person is because I'm still validating and testing. And I think knowing where you are in a business and what you should be concentrating on and what you shouldn't be concentrating on, one, it keeps you sane. Two, it lets you know where your focus should be, and to know you're spending more time marketing than you really are actually doing the business. And that was so gratifying because I was like, what is wrong with me? like, all I'm doing is marketing. I'm barely doing what I love to do. And she's like, congratulations, that's the stage you're in. But it was
Welcome.
so, but to know that, because when you go on YouTube, if this is Wednesday, you start a business on Wednesday, you've hit $100,000 a day by Thursday. And if you haven't, you're a failure.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we for I was actually just I just came back from my US tour, and so I've been back for a couple of weeks, and it's been really fascinating to I've been on social media like crazy. I haven't felt like working, I'll be honest. And so lots of social media, and the number of like ads and things like that, that's like become a copywriter, make $10,000 a month in 3 months, right? Like become run this Facebook ad, and you just spend $150 a day and you'll make a hundred K immediately. Like it's crazy. And so let's talk about like sort of the on ramp. Like not everybody's on ramp to ownership and to business is the same.
Yes.
I'll start because I'm thinking about this person. So I know a woman who's fantastic, and she worked at State Street, and she had this amazing goal where she was like, I want to make, I don't know, it was like high five figures, right? A very comfortable salary.
Mhm.
And I found it really fascinating because when we were talking, it was sometime late last year. That was her goal. And she was like, yeah, and I'm on track to double it. And I was like, that's amazing. But then I was, but then, comparison really is the thief of joy. And it was fascinating because I was like, man, in my first year, I wasn't anywhere close to that. I mean, I did okay and I was happy with my okay, but like, that's not what I was doing. Like, that's not how I was working. And what I've been finding is, run your own race has been like the refrain that I've needed to keep in my head. What about you?
100%. And I'll give you someone maybe on a little bit of the other side of the story. So when I started in financial services, even when I started my business, within if I gave the YouTube reel, this is what it would look like, y'all. Started my business. Within a few months, I had a major corporate contract and I had clients coming in. Yeah, that sounds great. But here was the context. I had been in this industry for 20 years already. I had worked a year prior with marketing, with building the business, with telling everybody what I did. And keep in mind, that was a year prior. So when I left, I was seeing the fruits of what I did a year ago after planning. But no one talks about that first part. So all you see is she just started and she had these clients. And I'm like, no, they weren't there with the 80-hour work weeks.
Mhm.
I think one point my husband threatened to turn off the internet so I would get off the computer. Like, no one talks about that. So we lack context. Also, context and experience. When you have someone that grew up with entrepreneurs as parents, which I most certainly did not, there's almost this osmosis of what you learn and how you grow. And if you don't have that, you're starting off from scratch. When I listen to an influencer, I hate to say it, the second they tell me they have a marketing degree, I'm like, whatever, because there is such a huge head start in knowing how to market that I fell over like the village idiot trying to figure out. And that is a huge advantage. So, not knowing the context, the background, the family, it makes a difference.
Yeah, I said that, I've told you that I've had multiple businesses. So my very first, well, I started two in one day with a business partner. So, yep, don't be me. I do silly things, silly things. And so my business partner had opened up the bank account and he was calling me to let me know, right? So he'd gone into the bank, done his thing, and he was calling me to be like, hey, Shanae, just letting you know the bank accounts are open. We'll get the check soon. Da 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 da. Great, sounds awesome. And then he goes, but I have something important to tell you. And I was like, okay, what's up? He's like, so I think you need to come down to Atlanta. I was living in the DC area at the time. And he goes, you're gonna have to come down to Atlanta this weekend. We have work to do. And I was like, we're what? And he goes, yeah, Paramount called. We have a commercial to shoot for them. It was Wednesday, right? So all of a sudden, my bank accounts are not even open. The businesses are not even a month old, and all of a sudden, I have this very nice size contract that's immediate, but like based on exactly what you're saying, which it was amazing,
Yeah.
but like my business partner has been in the industry for 15 years, and I'm coming in as like an operations person, like COO, CEO kind of work, like providing structure. So he's been doing them, like just building off of what you said, he'd been doing all of the building and relationships and all of this marketing, if you will, for years, way prior to these bank accounts needing to be open. And this specific account, I think he said to me later, he'd been working on it for talking to people for around 6 months, 8 months. So it wasn't new.
But I do find it's just not mentioned enough. So you go in, and then within a few months, you're like, why don't I have any clients? And I'm thinking, well, one, you just got to get over just mentally the hump of those first few months of exhaustion, of navigating the mental shift to being an employer. Then from there, you're developing the concept of what you're going to do. And like you, this is not where I ended up. This is not where I am now. Is nothing like what my business started. So when someone wants to spend a ton of money on branding and a ton of money on a website, I try to gently tell them, please don't. Your business is probably going to look entirely different. And that takes time. And then your messaging, which my messaging was all, bless my heart, my messaging was all over the place because I didn't understand how to market. I didn't understand really much about it. So I'm already at 9 months by this point, and I haven't moved the needle. And I wish somebody would have said, yeah, that's kind of normal.
That's on time.
That's on time.
That's on time.
I love that. What was a big challenge for you when you first started those first few months?
I think what you said. The like who I am now versus who I was when I first started. Jennifer, I think when you and I last talked, I said I listened to a podcast interview that I did around a year and some change ago now, and I was like, I listened to the whole thing. I don't know why I listened. I have no idea why, but I decided that I needed to listen to this podcast interview, and I was like, what are you talking about, Shanae? Like it's like sort of there. It's sort of on brand, but like you don't know who you are until you just evolve over time. And I've been in business for a while, right? I've been kind of doing this thing for a while, but even I'm like, "Ooh, that was I need some changes. That's not quite right."
Yeah. Yeah. I I didn't understand marketing. Like I did everything backwards. So now I know what problem exactly are you trying to solve? I didn't start off with that. I started off with what I was going to do. And then I went looking for the person to suit that rather than what someone calls a lock and key approach. I believe you find the problem and then you create the solution. I created the solution and then went to find the problem. And I was new, and I think a lot of people do that, and that's those months you're figuring it out. So no one told me, okay, maybe they did and I wasn't paying attention. So I can't say that. But you need to figure out who on earth, what solution are you providing and what's your unique way of doing it? Didn't do that up front. Who is the best person for this solution? And does that person recognize that they actually have this need? Do they actually feel it's a need they want to pay for? And are you the type of person they even want to work with? And is your solution the way they see solving the problem? Those were things that didn't consider, and those are all resounding no's for my first product, by the way. But I had to take a step back and think through all those because the clients I thought I wanted, it just honestly wasn't a fit for them. It was all of these things that it would have saved me so much time and energy. What about you?
Mm, yes, all of the above. Elsa, Jennifer, Leon, Toriel, any thoughts so far? Ooh, I saw that lean back, Elsa. Okay.
For
All
me,
the
it's definitely the clients that I thought I wanted. Like that has changed. Cause I got in there and I said, wait, now hold on. Y'all are not my people. I need to change this.
Yes.
100%.
100%. That was like a delayed reaction. I was just like running through my head the number of people that I attracted to me that I was like, ooh, you are not it. And not in a bad way, just they're not, it is what it is. Anybody else?
Yeah, I love what you said. Um, like it is true about like we always tell about our achievements, but not with the times that we fail just before to get to that achievement. Because to get to that level of success, you have to walk a long path, and along that path, in some point, there was something that you are, or at least for me, I was not happy about it, and I feel like a failure. I have I have different endeavors, and many of them they weren't successful, or they weren't like what I want. So it's important to also to say that like I'm here and I'm successful and I was able to achieve this because before that I failed so many times and I learned from those failures. So that I think that's very important thing to also to be honest about.
Yeah, yeah. Jennifer, you had something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it all sounds so familiar what you guys are talking about. I'm in just the really early stages, first couple months myself, and it really is like I'm appreciating the word grace because it really is like a complete redirect of my brain. And that is enough right now almost, right? I mean, that's enough to bite off. So but yeah, and I've taken the approach of somewhat out of necessity, somewhat, I don't know, just cuz, and learning a lot about myself along the way, which has been interesting. But I'm just kind of throwing stuff against the wall and seeing what happens and then formulating a strategy based off of that, which I don't think is necessarily the wrong way, right, to be doing it, because it's helping me figure out how to direct myself almost. I don't know, but yeah, it's very different. It's very different. So for so many reasons, as you all know.
I think it's just really paying attention, like really paying attention to your on ramp
Hmm.
like it's your own story, right?
Yeah.
Like and me being a multi-business owner at one time, and then now I've gone down to one. This is my first time ever having one business. And I don't have another job. I don't have any other things going on. So like my on ramp to the business that I own now and what I'm doing versus the things that I've done in the past, like those stories are completely different. And I've had to give myself a lot of grace because, there's a million and one ways to skin a cat. And then there's probably a few more. So, and none of them are wrong. It's just different.
Yeah.
Yeah, you bring up a great point because I was trying to follow when I first started someone else's model for starting a business. Not only was I absolutely miserable,
Hmm.
it didn't work for me. Like it just, and then I had convinced myself, well, the issue was me. Because if this person was successful and I'm using their model, then what's the issue? So I had to do stuff that probably wouldn't work for other people, but it worked for me because it took me a second to realize, well, that person doesn't have my personality. That person isn't aligned with my personal values. Their definition of business success looks different than mine. And how they gather, like this person in particular kind of gathered data. And then from the data, kind of figured out how to work with people. I needed people and then figured out the data. So her approach was completely opposite to how my brain was wired. And I love what's in the comments. I had to learn to trust myself and my intuition. And I feel like you kind of got to detox from your job sometimes so you can get that. Like I didn't realize I lost my intuition because when you're so gaslit, you almost think you're crazy. So getting that back so then I can trust myself and say if I am here to trust the process. I totally agree with that.
Yeah. Charles, do you want to expand upon that? Tell us more.
I love that.
Yeah. And I'm gonna just say it because I'm a very transparent person. So for anyone on the call, I hope you don't get it, offended. But I have been following a lot of non-black people, and a lot of what they say is dipped in Eurocentrism, and it works for a lot of them, right? But like I'm sassy, I'm a New Yorker. I don't, you know what I'm saying? I'm not palatable, and I'm not trying to be palatable. And so I think that a lot of the advice that I've been given is kind of to like mute myself a little bit, mute my personality, mute like I have blue and pink in my hair. So my sales pages and things like that have blue, pink, purples, yellows, all the colors, you know what I'm saying? And so it's not until literally this last month or two that I'm like, no, this isn't me. I don't feel aligned with this.
Mm.
And so if I'm not feeling aligned with it, the people that I'm trying to attract, they're gonna feel something off. So even if they don't know exactly what it is, they're gonna be like, maybe not. And that's not what I'm trying to attract. So I am starting to take what works and leave the rest alone, and just trust myself to know, that what I'm doing is working for me. And if it's not working for me, it will eventually.
Yeah, I love that because to me, what you're describing is what I really, really, really wished I would have done in the beginning. And it's almost like a vetting system for how you choose your coaches or a vetting system for which gurus you choose. Is this person sensitive to cultural nuances? Is this person aligned with my values? If they're automatically muting someone's natural personality, to me, that's an automatic red flag because they're for a fit for one person, not a fit for another. Are they kind of aligned in how I see my values? Are they kind of aligned in how I see my business? But you really just beautifully outlined vetting system for how you choose the person that you're going to get coached by to help you with your business.
And it's not even just like the coaching itself, it's if you buy those products, if you
100%.
right? Like if you go and
Mm.
subscribe to their YouTube channel, like it's like how you interact with them, like does it honestly make sense? You know, I had I had this man reach out to me in um via LinkedIn to get on a wait list for a course of some sort. And the course was interesting, but I was like trying to understand like why it felt weird. And like I think that we and I'm making this like a social we feel weird when we feel weird. So we're not and we're like, oh well, our weirdness is not supposed to exist this way. And so like, oh well, he just reached out to me on LinkedIn and was, proposing that I join this wait list for a course. Well, I felt weird about it, but I joined it anyway. And then I read the sales page and all this stuff, and it sounds really interesting, but I was finally going to go ahead and like roll with my intuition and be like, I feel weird about this. Like this doesn't feel aligned, right? And that's not a word I use quite a lot, but vocabulary is vocabulary. And what I found really interesting was I decided, you know what, why don't I go ahead and just throw it into ChatGPT? Like it was kind of a fun exercise, but I said, here's the sales page. I took the sales page, I copied it, threw it in ChatGPT. I said, here's the sales page, and I'm feeling really weird about it. Can you help me ask me a bunch of questions about why I might be feeling weird about this opportunity, this course? And I use ChatGPT for a lot of different things in my business, so it quote unquote knows me really well. But what it ended up going was like it comes across as really broy, and you are very relationship based. So no wonder you're having a hard time with, with you feel weird because it is weird. That's not the way that you approach your business, the way that you move around in the world, the way that you show up for your people. So of course you feel weird. So first of all, I feel really validated. But then second of all, like those little hints of intuition, use them, right? Like even if it doesn't weird, like I was like, I just feel weird. That's not really like that's enough of an answer, right? And I felt really empowered by being like, this, I don't know why. So I was curious to know more about how I could avoid something like this in the future. And now I understand. This is what I was seeing.
I love that. I think when I'm so stealing that. When I approach something like that, it didn't occur to me till you just said this. That's a very employee centric thought. We have to just deal with crap and just make it work. But as a business owner, we don't to. We can make the choice. And honestly, even as an employee, we probably shouldn't. Um, but trusting your gut, like for me, I want a business that supports the life that I want, the flexibility, the freedom. It does not need to be huge. And it feels almost shameful in this culture to say that because immediately I get hit with, oh, you must have imposter syndrome, or something is wrong with you if you don't want this insane business where you're working all these hours and doing all these things. It's like, I know what I want. I am strategically solo. I plan to stay that way. It's perfectly okay if someone doesn't make the choice, but I get really irritated when they try to downplay my choice. So my thing is choosing people that actually respect that. But now I remember back in the day where the big thing was six figures. I'm like, that's child's play. Now I'm almost hearing $80,000 a month. Like some now I'm waiting for us to get to seven, eight. No, we're already at seven figures, eight or nine figures. And it's that's just not everybody. For some, they're going into business for a different reason. For some, it's purposeful. So I find we don't always respect that that person's decision is that person's decision, and then we just slap this label on it.
Yeah. If your goal is at six figures and then seven figures and then eight figures and a big, huge team and, multiple locations and all of the things, then you're not doing it right.
Yeah.
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 And
I
that
know.
is one of our best assets is our uniqueness, or I don't know if I pronounce it right,
Yeah.
but how unique each of us are. And that is something that is a big asset, and we have to value that on top of everything. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I was just gonna say, like, I was literally told earlier this, no, today's Wednesday, so probably end of last week. I was told that by a coach of mine that I'm showing a lot of resistance and things like that. And I'm like, I'm not being resistant, but it's more if you're doing things just because other gurus told you to, and I'm telling you I don't want to do that because I don't want to do that, like that's not resistance. That's me telling you, hey, that doesn't align with me and that should be just okay. Like that should be okay. Take my no for my no.
I
Ooh, I
think
like that.
that's
Take my no from my no. I
yeah,
like that.
I'm
I
taking
might,
that one too.
I might
I'm
steal that
taking
one.
all you. I know no, I'm just outright saying I'm taking that one. But even so, part of what I do is I help corporate women get financially ready so they can quit their jobs and start a business. But that comes into play even in that conversation because I tell them, you do this your way. I had one lady and she's like, I love Michelin star restaurants. And I was like, okay, what quantity throughout the year can we do this that fits into the amount of money you need? So instead of me telling her no, it was, I respect it. If that's what she values, I don't have a right to say no to that. I just need to make sure it works with her budget. And we figured it out. She could go a couple of times a year and she was fine. So I also we have to take an instant leap. I'm like, it can be bunny hops. It doesn't have to be dramatic. So to me, it's respecting how you want to do this and telling people this is your journey to do it in your way that feels right to you.
Can you go further into that? Like, I think, you know, so much of business ownership is mindset and leadership and management and figuring it out and making mistakes and pivoting, maybe pivoting again. But I don't think that we talk enough about the financial changes that we end up having to make. And not necessarily in a bad way, it just is, right? Like, you know, like I said, like I no longer was able to look at my pay stub and see my
Mhm.
20% saving goal anymore. I don't have a pay stub anymore. I have a bank account, a couple of bank accounts actually,
Yeah.
right? So,
Yeah, I find the personal financial piece is interesting because this is the foundation that you're going to build your business on in the first couple of years because you don't have regular business income coming in. But so few people plan for it. But what I call that self-employed gap life, that season when you don't have corporate income and you don't have business income, that with 12 to 18-month period is where so many businesses fall, particularly when I look at the statistics for Black women. We are number one in entrepreneurship, but I hope the statistics is wrong. But I saw as high as 80% do not make it, like they fail between 12 to 18 months. And to me, if you look at the math, that kind of what coincides when their money runs out. So as I tell people, the second you think you want to quit, I'm like, please come see me or see a financial professional because there's so much you can do to plan while you have a steady paycheck. Things like if you haven't really figured out how much money you need to survive, you don't need to figure that out after you quit your job. It's like, let's make sure we understand what your spending is and let's make sure we come up with that transition season budget that's realistic. It's like someone who swears that they're never going to eat sugar again, okay, or maybe I'm the only one who loves sugar. That's nice for 2 months, but for 2 years. So I find people grossly underestimate how much discipline it's going to take to be that, to have that little money coming in for 2 years. You're going to want a cup of coffee, you're going to want a shirt. You're going to want a life. So if they can incorporate that from the beginning, and as I mentioned before, when I work with people, I have them buffer in detox. That's like 3 months because you are majorly transitioning during that time frame. And again, for me, I was ineffective for the first 3 months. So if you're not generating income, we need to buffer that in. I find a lot of people only buffer for the money to keep a roof over their head. And I'm like, life does not stop lifing. I would love for it to when you're not employed. So I tell people, think of stuff like maybe looking at your deductibles and throwing that in. That way, if something happens to your car and home, you're not digging through money that's meant for keeping a roof over your head. Think about upcoming expenses. Like I worked with one lady, she wanted to leave. I'm looking at my calendar now. I think it was the end of January. Well, we planned for that November and December because we knew if she didn't have a game plan for making it through Thanksgiving and Christmas, she was going to blow through the money that she was going to need to survive in. So, thinking of upcoming expenses, thinking through business expenses, especially in the beginning. I didn't even have a website. I just had this little page people can go to sign up. So you don't need to go crazy in those first few years. So just mapping out that first year and understanding that you are going to need a financial buffer because nothing is going to come, nothing, very little will probably come in that first year, and you're normal. And then maybe having a plan B, like a part-time job or something, if it is a little bit longer. My goal is for someone to make it through that first 2 years with their sanity and their financial security intact.
I mean, that's so much of it, right? Because like this, like I would think of business ownership as a longer game, right? Because like I mean, I don't I never thought I was told to go to school, get good grades, and get a good job. And I did exactly that. I have the initials behind my name to prove it.
Mhm.
And then all of a sudden, again, accidental entrepreneur, right? Like then I owned two businesses and then a third easily popped up. And now I'm here at my fourth. And then I've quit my corporate job. And then I've done, right? Like so things like kind of just steamroll you. Like things happen, right? That's only been 7 years. So when we're thinking through there's a song on right now. It's like, I'm going through changes, right? Like it's, you know, like you just continue to evolve over time and things will change. So being able to, you know, be able to like take your money with you, whatever that is. It is big mouth. Um, and you know, like thinking through the things that are going to happen to you as you go through over time. I mean, I want to make sure that I stay financially solvent as I make my maneuvers and make my changes.
Yeah, I mean, my wish is people at least get some of the ugly out before they quit. Like, I even tell people, you know what, go to therapy. Your job screwed you up. Use their money and their people to go fix you before you go. Don't pay $300 once you leave. And people, and it's interesting because sometimes people push back a little bit, but once they do it, they're like, I wish I would have done this earlier. I'm like, get healed before you go. Ideally, at least have some paying clients before you go, because I'm listening to what everyone is saying. There's a huge difference between, for instance, I love coaching people and I don't get paid unless I coach someone. So when you are coaching, it's fun, but when you're coaching and you have to charge someone for it, that's different. So a lot of this is doing the legwork while you have the income to support you. And for those that hate their jobs, consider your jobs that financial stepping stone to being free, to having the freedom of self-employment. I just, if you just reframe it, you hate your job, fine. Let it fuel your dream. So I have a question for you. So systems and processes. What are your thoughts? Because sometimes I'll hear people say, I don't have any clients. I don't need systems. I don't need processes. I could see your, what do you tell
Mm,
those people?
mm. You needed them when you first started. Like I think that every client that I've worked with, especially those that are being a little more resistant, they all tend to say, "Oh, well, I mean, I don't need them right now because like they're changing." And I'm like, "Yes, that's why you need it. That's exactly why you need it because you have no idea how to replicate what you've done. So you need a process so you can understand like, oh, that didn't feel good. I didn't like that. That didn't work. I hated that. Whatever, you know, choose your favorite phrase. But like I work with people really thinking about their processes and their systems, mostly because we need to have something at least pseudo documented. It's not like you need something written down on paper per se. It takes a lot of time, but at least something that's fairly well outlined that if you replicated it over and over again, you wouldn't hate it. And would be like, oh, okay, that's where things went wrong, or that's where this went right. So let me make some changes so I can, you know, head towards best, right? Um, and I especially think a lot about this in finance because a lot of my clients are, I ask a couple of questions when I start working with my clients. And one of them is, have you looked at your balance sheet and have you looked at a profit and loss sheet? And can you give it to me? Not because I care what the numbers say. I actually don't care how much money you made in the last year, 2 years, 10 years. Are you happy with it? I'm happy with it. You like it, I love it. What I actually am much more interested in is like, do you know what your balance sheet looks like? Have you seen it? Also, you're probably going, yes, yes. Do you like how recent is it? Right? Like, are you paying attention to the way that you categorize things? Those are all systems, those are all processes like that, you know, how often, you know, so when I look at it, I'm looking at hallmarks of, you know, work. What have you done to make sure that you're good?
Yeah. Yeah, of course, as a numbers person, I love that because to me, the financial statements are tools that allows you to make decisions from strategy, not stress. And you know, since we're all BFFs here and I'm just throwing all my business out there, gotta tell you, and it's so embarrassing. I do this for a living. Like this is like my jam, my thing. And I was not really paying attention to my statements. And when I looked at it, because I was frustrated, I had this digital product And I had these different lines of businesses. And wouldn't you know it, when I finally took a step back and look at my numbers, the service that was making me the most money had the lowest cost of service. The product that was the biggest headache, I was making next to nothing from, and it literally was taking up almost all of my expenses. So I had you and done that a little bit earlier, I would have been able to have made that decision instead of clinging on to something that wasn't working. So I try to tell people they are simply tools to help you make decisions. So one, I feel like sanity is my theme. So you can maintain your sanity and make decisions that sometimes when you're in the heat of the moment, it's just hard to make.
Um, Actually, that actually reminds me, my giveaway for today is actually a rethinking revenue toolkit. And it's really, the goal is for you to think about, what do you offer? How much have you made? What's the energy or effort that you have to use to be able to like get it out there? So thank you for helping me plug that, but that'll be in your email. So feel free to download that if you want it. And it's fascinating because actually I'm going through that edit right now in my own business. Right. There's lots of things that I can offer, and I'm really good at a lot of things. That's what happens when you're multi-passionate. But like, is that good for your energy? Do you want to run your business like that? Is that how you want to spend your time? Right? Like asking all of these important questions of, does this make sense? Right? Is this the kind of business that I want to be?
Absolutely. I love it. Wish I would have done it a lot earlier. And I feel like it's like something you need to do over and over again. So I am a big believer in putting stuff on my Google Calendar. I don't know what it is about me, type A, but when I put it as a task, I feel good when I can check it off. So that works for me.
It makes me feel good. Sometimes I'll write it down as a task so I can check it off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But even that, figuring out, like, to me, it even takes time to figure out, okay, what way can I do stuff where I'm consistent? Because I was talking to someone and she was like, I'm struggling with discipline in all these areas. And I said, you humanly can't be disciplined in every area. It's just not possible. So we have to prioritize where we have the discipline, and then we have to find workarounds for certain areas. Like for this particular person, it was, I eat out so much and it's bad. And I said, well, just stop eating, just stop buying groceries and just use your eat out money for that. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, it came out to the same amount. So my thing is, pick your poison where you're disciplined. In the other areas, if you can find a workaround, it's fine. Like for me, I was terrible at checking forms, but I will check off a box. You just have to find what works for you. And that takes time.
Yeah. Experimentation is just fine.
Yeah.
We're actually getting close to the top of the hour. Any thoughts from the audience? Any last thoughts from you, Tania?
I feel like I love our grace theme. So to have grace that you are exactly where you need to be, your struggles are not your own. And if you are within the first, what, 3 years, you would say, of business, if you find you're doing more marketing than actually doing the service you want to do, yeah, that's right.
I had a nice little statistic. Somebody told me 18 months. If you haven't gotten it together in 18 months, then you probably have just an expensive hobby.
Very wise.
I think I got that from you, Leon. Actually, I'm like 98% sure I got it from you. So I've been keeping it in mind. Any other thoughts from the audience, y'all?
Yeah, I love it. I love to have this conversation because they help me to validate what that we all go through the same uh, challenge, struggles, difficulties. Yeah, and that I feel like um, yeah, like supported when I listen to other people, and at the end, there is light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah, so thank you.
Sure. So I like to get y'all out right before the top of the hour. So thank you, Tanya. This has been awesome. If you guys loved what she was talking about, because I know that I did, feel free to connect with her on LinkedIn, book a call with her. Feel free to drop your links in the chat if you have those easily available, Tanya. So you're gonna hear from me again via email. I promise I won't get into your faces anymore right now. So our next fireside chat is next month, second Wednesday, 2 o'clock. We're talking to a woman named Joanne Homestead about email and operations, of course. And you'll receive an email with the gift from Tanya. It's a quiz. Do you want to tell them really quickly about that?
Yeah, it's a corporate escape quiz. So it goes over the 5 aspects of getting ready for entrepreneurship. But what I found was that people who were within that first year, that's also a great opportunity to go back and use that to review your finances to see maybe some things you may have missed on the leave. So once you do the quiz, you get a score. For each part of the score, I give 3 action steps just to get you moving in the right direction.
Love it. And my giveaway for y'all is a rethinking your revenue. So energetically, does it make sense? And is it actually accomplishing what you want? So you guys are amazing. You'll get the replay to this, not today, but tomorrow. So you'll receive a few emails from me over the next handful of days. If you need anything in the meantime, it's great. So great to see y'all. And thank you for coming. And we'll talk soon.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.